I was in bed with my girlfriend. The door burst open. Her fiancé stood there. He sat down calmly and said, "Continue." I never thought I'd tell this story. Even now, when I replay it in my head, it feels more like a scene out of some psychological thriller than my own life. But it happened, and I was right in the middle of it, half naked, stunned, and completely unprepared. It started like any other night. Nicole, the woman I was seeing, had invited me over. I knew she had a boyfriend. She hadn't exactly hidden that, but she always framed it like their relationship was hollow, more for appearances than love. She said he was controlling, distant, and already half checked out. I believed her. Or maybe I wanted to believe her, because it made my guilt easier to live with. Her apartment was dimly lit, the curtains drawn tight, the bed a mess of tangled sheets. We'd been careless that night, but in that recklessness there was a strange kind of freedom. We lay side by side, her head on my chest, when the sound hit. The sharp metallic snap of a lock turning. The door burst open so fast it slammed against the wall. I sat up instantly, my mind scrambling to make sense of it. Nicole froze, her eyes wide, her body rigid against mine. And then he appeared, Victor. I had seen him once before, from a distance, when he picked her up outside a cafe. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed sharply in a tailored coat. In that moment, standing in the doorway, his presence filled the room. But what shook me wasn't the fact that he caught us in bed. It was his reaction. He didn't shout. He didn't lunge forward. He didn't even blink. Instead, he closed the door gently behind him, pulled a chair from the corner, and sat down as if he had been invited. And then, in a voice disturbingly calm, he told us to continue. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard him. Nicole gasped, pulling the sheet to her chest. I tried to gather my clothes from the floor, but his eyes pinned me in place. They weren't wild or enraged. They were sharp, calculating, like he was studying us under glass. That silence stretched, thick and suffocating. My instinct screamed at me to run, but something about his composure made me freeze. I tried to speak, to explain, but he raised a hand slightly, silencing me without a word. He leaned back in the chair, crossed one leg over the other, and studied Nicole like she was a case file. She stammered something about me being a mistake, about us only just starting. He let her ramble, his face completely expressionless. Then, with eerie precision, he opened his phone and started typing. That was when I noticed the camera bag. It was on the dresser by the wall, partly unzipped. Next to it lay a small tripod, folded neatly. At first, I thought nothing of it. But then I remembered Nicole didn't own a camera. Something clicked in my head. This wasn't an accident. He had planned this. The thought chilled me. He wasn't shocked because he already knew. He wanted this moment. He had walked in, not to discover, but to collect. Nicole noticed it too. Her face went pale as her eyes darted to the bag, then back to him. She tried to reach out, maybe to calm him, but he didn't move. He just typed, the faint glow of his phone reflecting off his face. The silence gnawed at me until I blurted out that I should leave. He didn't look up. He simply said, "Not yet." That two-word command rooted me to the mattress. My skin prickled with unease. This wasn't rage. It was control, the kind that comes from someone who knows they hold every card in the deck. Nicole started pleading, insisting that she still loved him, that this was meaningless. He finally looked at her, and I saw the faintest trace of a smile. Not of amusement, of victory. He asked her how long it had been going on. She tried to say it was recent, but he interrupted her with dates. Specific days, times, places. He recited them like he was reading from a report. A dinner she claimed was with friends, but wasn't. A night she said she was at the gym, but hadn't been. A weekend she told him she was visiting her sister, but was with me. My chest tightened. He had been tracking everything. Nicole's voice broke as she tried to deny it, but the precision of his words left no room for escape. And then, as if to twist the knife, he pulled a stack of printed pages from his coat pocket and dropped them onto the nightstand. Receipts, screenshots, even a blurred photo of the two of us entering her building. I couldn't breathe. My mind raced back through the last few weeks, trying to pinpoint when and how he could have been following us. The receipts, the photos, the calm. He hadn't just discovered us. He had built a case. And that's when I realized something darker. This wasn't about heartbreak. It was about leverage. He wanted evidence. He wanted us cornered. Nicole broke down completely, clutching the sheets and sobbing. She tried to say she would end it, that he was the one she truly wanted, but his expression never changed. He turned his gaze to me for the first time since sitting down. It wasn't angry. It wasn't jealous. It was clinical, like he was measuring me. I felt a wave of dread. He knew who I was. He knew enough about me to not be surprised I was there, which meant he had been watching me too. I asked him why he didn't just confront her earlier if he knew. His answer chilled me more than the silence had. Because, he said, he needed the right moment. And tonight was it. Nicole looked at him like he was speaking a foreign language, but I understood. This wasn't the climax of his anger. It was the execution of a plan. I scanned the room again, my eyes catching on the folded tripod, the camera bag, the phone glowing in his hand. My stomach sank. We weren't just being confronted. We were being recorded, documented, cataloged. Nicole tried to get up, but he calmly told her to sit. And she did, trembling, as if his control over her had been rehearsed. The air felt poisonous. My own shame mixed with a deeper, more unsettling fear. What role was I playing in his plan? A pawn? A witness? A scapegoat? Victor leaned forward finally, steepling his fingers. He said this wasn't about me. That was almost worse, because it meant I was disposable in the bigger picture. Nicole begged him to forgive her, promising it would never happen again. He only tilted his head, his eyes never leaving hers. And then he asked me, casually, how long I really thought she had been cheating. The way he said it made my skin crawl. It wasn't a question. It was bait. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because the longer I sat there, the more I realized I didn't know Nicole at all. And then he did something that snapped everything into focus. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a small black USB drive, and set it on the nightstand beside the papers. He didn't explain. He didn't need to. Nicole's face drained of color. That was when I knew. This wasn't his first recording. He had footage. Of her. Of us. Of nights we thought were private. The walls seemed to close in. I wasn't sure if I was sick with panic or fury. But one thing became horrifyingly clear. I hadn't walked into a relationship. I had walked into a trap. And Victor had been waiting, patiently, for us to fall right into it. That night wasn't about jealousy. It was about control. He wasn't just confronting her. He was documenting her downfall. And me? I was the evidence he needed to tighten the noose. When he finally stood, smoothing out his coat, he didn't shout, didn't threaten. He simply told us both that this was only the beginning. And as the door clicked shut behind him, leaving me and Nicole shaking in silence, I realized he wasn't lying. The beginning had just ended. And something far worse was about to start. The morning after that night should have been ordinary. But when I woke up, it felt like I'd stepped into a crime scene. Nicole was curled against the far side of the bed, silent, her eyes red and swollen. Neither of us had slept much. Every creak in the hallway outside her apartment made us tense, as if Victor might walk in again. I dressed quickly, my hands trembling. I told her I was leaving, but she clutched my wrist with surprising force. She whispered that Victor wouldn't stop, that he wasn't like other men. She said he didn't just want revenge, he wanted to dismantle her piece by piece. Her words didn't surprise me. What haunted me was how calm he had been. He hadn't shouted, hadn't struck her, hadn't so much as raised his voice. He had just sat there, watching us like a man watching dominoes he'd lined up finally topple. That kind of patience wasn't ordinary. When I stepped into the street, the morning air should have felt fresh. Instead, it carried the suffocating weight of being observed. I scanned the sidewalks, the parked cars, the windows across the street. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was still watching me. At work, I couldn't focus. My phone buzzed, and when I checked, there was a message from an unknown number. Just one line. Hope you got enough rest. My stomach turned. He knew where I had been. He knew I stayed the night. Nicole called me later, frantic. She said Victor had left the apartment early without a word. That scared her more than if he'd exploded in rage. The silence meant he was moving pieces on a board we couldn't see. That evening, I decided to confront the situation directly. I went back to her place. Not for her, but because I needed answers. The moment I stepped through the door, I noticed something new. A manila envelope sat on the coffee table, sealed but addressed to Nicole in bold letters. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a neat stack of papers, clipped together. Bank statements, receipts, notes in Victor's precise handwriting. He had tracked every financial move she had made in the last 6 months. She had siphoned money quietly from their joint account, covering it with fake explanations. Little withdrawals here, bigger ones there. She had spent some of it on us. Trips, hotels, dinners. But she had also tucked some away. Nicole's face crumpled. She whispered that she thought she was being careful. Victor had known the whole time. And then, at the bottom of the pile, was another envelope. Inside it was a series of photographs. Some of us together. Some of her alone. Some of her with other men. That was when the ground shifted under me. I stared at the images, my mind refusing to accept what my eyes saw. Nicole had sworn to me I was the only one. That what we had was real, even if it was wrong. But there she was, smiling in a different man's car, walking hand in hand into another building, kissing someone who wasn't me. My chest burned. She grabbed the photos, tried to rip them, but I snatched them back. Rage flooded me, not just at her, but at myself for being naive. Victor hadn't just collected evidence. He had laid out her betrayals like a lawyer preparing an ironclad case. and then I noticed a smaller slip of paper tucked among the photos. A simple line, handwritten in dark ink. Do you still think you're the only one? It wasn't just aimed at her. It was aimed at me. Nicole broke down, begging me to understand. She said the photos weren't what they looked like, that Victor was manipulating everything. But the dates matched nights she claimed to be with me. The receipts lined up with places I knew she hadn't gone with me. The contradictions piled higher and higher. My head spun. For weeks, maybe months, I'd been living in an illusion. And then the buzzer rang. Nicole froze. She whispered that it was him. She didn't move to open the door, but the lock clicked anyway. The door swung wide, and Victor walked in, carrying a leather folder. He looked immaculate, as if nothing had disturbed him. He sat down at the table, slid the folder open, and began laying out more documents without saying a word. I wanted to confront him, to shout, but the sheer composure he radiated smothered me. When he finally spoke, his tone was even. He said he wasn't interested in theatrics. He was interested in truth. He turned to Nicole and recited a list of names. Men she had been in contact with, some I recognized from the photos, others strangers. Each name was followed by dates, times, locations. His precision was terrifying. Nicole shook her head, tried to deny it, but every denial was met with proof. Phone records, credit card statements, security camera stills. Victor never raised his voice. He didn't need to. Every piece of evidence cut sharper than any scream. I sat there, numb, realizing I wasn't just the other man. I was one of many. Nicole finally snapped, shouting that he had no right to invade her privacy, to spy on her like this. For the first time, I saw something flicker across his face. Not anger, amusement. He leaned forward and asked her a question that chilled me. Did she really think she had any privacy left? He gestured to the ceiling. My eyes followed, and that's when I saw it. A tiny dark dot near the corner, barely visible. A camera. My skin crawled. How many nights had it been recording? How many moments had I thought were private, only to be captured and cataloged? Victor pulled a small remote from his pocket, pressed a button, and the TV across the room lit up. A grainy video appeared, Nicole and I in bed, laughing, unaware. My stomach lurched. Nicole screamed, lunging for the remote, but Victor calmly placed it back in his pocket. He said he had copies. Many copies. The message was clear. Every move we made had been under his control. Nicole collapsed, sobbing, begging him to stop. I couldn't look at her. My anger at her betrayal mixed with fear of what Victor intended to do with this arsenal of evidence. And then, with chilling casualness, he said this was only phase 1. He opened another envelope and slid it toward me. Inside was a document, neatly typed. It outlined my name, my job, even my address. Attached was a page detailing my involvement with Nicole, dates, times, photos. He looked me straight in the eye and told me I had 2 choices. Either I cooperate with him, or I become part of the fallout. My throat went dry. I asked him what cooperate meant. He said I would find out soon enough. Nicole tried to intervene, insisting I wasn't to blame, but he silenced her with a glance. He stood, gathered his papers with methodical precision, and told us both that he would be in touch. And then, as calmly as he had entered, he walked out. The silence that followed was unbearable. Nicole clutched my arm, begging me to help her. But I couldn't even process my own thoughts. Victor had built something far larger than a confrontation. He had created a web, and we were both trapped in it. I staggered home, my mind racing. Every sound in the street felt like a signal, every passing car a threat. I locked my door, pulled the blinds, and sat in darkness. Hours passed, but I couldn't rest. When my phone buzzed again, I nearly dropped it. Another message, from the same unknown number. This time, it was a photo. Not of me, not of Nicole, of my apartment building. Taken from across the street. The caption was only one word: watched. My hands shook as I stared at it. This wasn't just about Nicole anymore. He wanted me to feel the cage closing too. And it was working. That night, for the first time, I realized something terrifying. Victor didn't just want to ruin Nicole. He wanted control over both of us. And he already had it. I didn't sleep that night. Every shadow looked like it hid someone. Every noise in the hallway made me flinch. The photo of my apartment still burned in my mind. He wanted me to know he was close, that he could see me whenever he wanted. By morning, I felt hollow. I told myself I should walk away from all of this, cut Nicole off, erase her number, and put distance between me and Victor. But when I checked my phone, I found a new message waiting. No words this time, just a video file. I hesitated before opening it, but curiosity won. The screen filled with grainy footage from the camera in Nicole's bedroom. The angle showed me clear as day, walking in, tossing my jacket aside, sitting on her bed. Then the video cut to another man entering, one I didn't recognize, and Nicole greeting him with the same smile she had once given me. My stomach turned. He wasn't bluffing when he said I wasn't the only one. Attached to the video was a single line of text. She lied to both of you. Want proof? Meet me at the cafe on 8th at 3 p.m. I stared at it for a long time. Every instinct told me it was a trap, but the other half of me, the part that needed answers, wouldn't let me ignore it. At 3 sharp, I walked into the cafe. It was busy enough to feel public, but quiet enough for conversation. Victor was already there, sitting near the window, a leather folder in front of him. He looked exactly as he had the night he burst in, calm, collected, like nothing touched him. He gestured for me to sit. The first thing he did was slide a sheet of paper across the table. It was a bank transfer slip, showing Nicole had wired several $1,000s to an account under another man's name. I recognized the date. It was a night she had told me she couldn't see me because she was with her sister. Victor explained, in his unervingly steady tone, that Nicole had been using him financially for years. The apartment they lived in was in his name, paid for by him. The car she drove was technically his. The savings account she dipped into belonged to him too. And all the while, she funneled pieces of it away to men like me and others like the one in the video. I asked him why he was showing me this. Why not just expose her outright? He leaned back, folded his hands, and said he already planned to. But he wanted me to understand the scope of what she had done. He wanted me to see that I wasn't her partner. I was just another tool she used. His words stung, but the evidence on the table silenced any protest I might have had. Then he opened the leather folder. Inside were printouts of emails, hotel bookings, chat logs. He had compiled everything into a timeline so detailed it felt less like a breakup and more like a prosecution. He tapped one page and told me Nicole had even been in contact with someone overseas, arranging transfers in exchange for favors he didn't elaborate on. I felt my throat tighten. This wasn't just infidelity. This was fraud. Victor's eyes locked on mine. He said he could destroy her with all of it, but he wanted something more precise. I asked him what he meant. He smiled faintly. He said he wanted her to destroy herself. That was the first time I truly felt the depth of his strategy. He didn't want to be the one to pull the trigger. He wanted her to collapse under the weight of her own lies, with witnesses to every moment. I told him I didn't want to be part of it. He tilted his head, studying me, and asked if I thought I had a choice. Then he slid another paper across the table. This one wasn't about Nicole. It was about me. It was a copy of my employment contract, my salary, my work schedule, even disciplinary notes from years ago that I thought were buried. I looked at him in disbelief. He had pulled my personal records somehow. He leaned in slightly and said if I tried to walk away, he could make sure my boss saw those videos of me with Nicole. He could make sure my name was tied to her schemes. Cold sweat trickled down my back. He told me I had nothing to fear if I cooperated. That he wasn't my enemy, Nicole was. It was twisted, but part of me believed him. When I left the cafe, I felt like I'd signed something invisible. I was inside his plan now, whether I liked it or not. Nicole called me that night, sobbing, begging me to meet her. Against my better judgment, I went. She was waiting in her apartment, pacing, clutching her phone. She said Victor had shown up earlier with the same folder, had laid everything out, and told her time was running out. She tried to convince me that he was manipulating the evidence, that half of it wasn't real. But the way she couldn't look me in the eye told me otherwise. When I confronted her about the man in the video, she broke down, insisting it meant nothing, that she had been lonely, that I was the one she really cared about. The words felt hollow. And then, in desperation, she turned the blame on me. She said if I hadn't pushed her for more, if I hadn't been so demanding, she wouldn't have made those choices. I stood there, stunned, realizing she would say anything to escape accountability. That was when I noticed a small red light blinking in the corner of the room. A camera, hidden near the bookshelf. I stepped closer, and Nicole's face went pale. Victor had planted it. He had been recording this entire breakdown. Nicole lunged for it, but I stopped her. In that instant, I understood the full picture. He wasn't just collecting proof of her cheating. He was recording every lie, every excuse, every attempt to manipulate. He was building a perfect dossier that showed not just what she did, but who she really was. I realized then that he didn't need to twist the evidence. Nicole was doing it herself. She screamed at me to help her, to stand with her against him. But I couldn't. Not after everything I'd seen. And that was when the front door opened. Victor walked in, as calm as ever, carrying another envelope. Nicole shrieked at him, demanded to know why he was doing this. He set the envelope on the table and said it was time she started answering questions instead of asking them. Inside were transcripts of her online messages. Explicit ones. Dozens of them. Nicole's legs buckled. She sank to the floor, clutching her head. Victor didn't gloat. He didn't need to. The evidence spoke for him. Then he turned to me and handed me a document. It was a witness statement template. All I had to do was sign it, confirming what I had seen, confirming my involvement, and confirming Nicole's pattern. I stared at it, my pulse racing. Signing it would make me part of his plan officially. Refusing meant risking everything he had threatened. Nicole screamed at me not to do it, calling me a coward, a traitor. But the more she shouted, the more I saw the truth. She had never cared about me. I was just another name on Victor's list. My hand shook as I held the pen. Victor's voice was calm, steady. He said this was the moment where I decided whether I walked out of this intact or went down with her. I signed. The moment the ink hit the paper, Victor smiled for the first time. Not wide, not triumphant, just a small, satisfied curve of his lips. Nicole lunged at me, clawing at the paper, but Victor stepped between us with a quiet authority that froze her in place. He told her this was only the beginning, that the next step was coming soon. And for the first time, I believed him completely, because I had just handed him the weapon he needed. And there was no going back. After I signed that paper, there was no undoing it. I went home that night with shaking hands and a hollow chest. My head pounded with guilt, but also with a strange sense of inevitability. Victor had pulled me into his plan, and I had given him what he wanted. Days passed with eerie silence. Nicole called me repeatedly, but I ignored her. Each voicemail was angrier than the last, pleading one moment, threatening the next, promising she would ruin me if I didn't take her side. But I couldn't. Not anymore. Then, one Friday morning, a black envelope appeared under my door. Inside was a single card with the date, time, and location of an event, their engagement party. Written beneath it, in Victor's precise handwriting, were 4 words that sent a chill down my spine. You will be there. I knew what it meant. This was the moment he had been preparing for. The stage where Nicole would collapse under the weight of her own lies. The night of the party, I walked into the rented hall, my heart thundering. Families mingled, glasses clinked, laughter filled the air. On the surface, it looked like any other celebration. But the undercurrent was darker. Victor had orchestrated this gathering not to celebrate, but to expose. I spotted Nicole across the room. She looked radiant, dressed in a shimmering gown, her makeup flawless, her smile fixed. But her eyes betrayed her. They darted constantly, scanning the crowd, filled with fear she couldn't hide. Victor greeted guests with effortless charm, shaking hands, smiling politely, never hinting at what was about to unfold. I stayed near the edge of the room, invisible in the crowd, waiting for the storm. Dinner passed, toasts were made, and finally, Victor stood at the front of the room. He tapped his glass lightly, drawing the room's attention. The chatter quieted. Nicole turned toward him, her smile frozen, as if she already knew what was coming. Victor began by thanking everyone for coming. His voice was steady, warm, even affectionate. He spoke about love, commitment, and trust. Nicole's smile trembled at the edges. Then he said there was something important he needed to share. He reached into a folder placed discreetly on the table beside him and pulled out a stack of papers. My stomach clenched. He began to read. Not vows, not declarations of love, but excerpts from Nicole's own messages. Lines dripping with betrayal, promises made to other men, lies carefully told to cover her tracks. The room froze. Conversations died instantly. All eyes turned to Nicole. Her face drained of color. She shook her head, stammering that it wasn't true, that it was fabricated. But Victor was prepared. He held up receipts, bank records, photographs. He had everything organized in perfect sequence, each piece building upon the last. Then came the video. He connected a small drive to the projector. The screen lit up with footage from the hidden cameras. Grainy, unmistakable, undeniable. Nicole in bed with me. Nicole with another man. Nicole whispering lies into her phone while Victor sat unknowingly in the next room. The gasps from the guests cut through the silence like knives. Nicole screamed for him to stop, ran to the projector, tried to pull the plug, but Victor calmly intercepted her, holding her wrists with a quiet authority that silenced even her. Her parents sat in stunned silence, faces twisted with shame and fury. Friends whispered furiously, their eyes glued to the screen. Nicole's composure shattered. She fell to her knees, sobbing, begging Victor not to do this. She promised she would change, that she would never betray him again. But Victor only looked at her with the same calm, unblinking eyes as before. He told her this wasn't about him anymore. This was about truth. And then, to my horror, he gestured toward me. Dozens of eyes turned in my direction. My pulse skyrocketed. I wanted to disappear, but my feet carried me forward as if compelled. Victor introduced me not as an enemy, but as a witness. He explained that I had signed a statement, confirming everything. He thanked me for helping him expose the truth. I felt the weight of the room pressing down on me. Nicole shrieked that I was lying, that I was part of his plan, but the evidence on the screen made her words hollow. Victor ended the display by placing a final envelope on the table. Inside were legal documents, an annulment agreement, financial protections, and filings that stripped Nicole of access to their accounts, their home, and their shared assets. In one night, she lost everything. The hall erupted into chaos. Guests whispered, some left in shock, others stayed, unable to look away. Nicole's parents disowned her on the spot, storming out without a glance back. Friends avoided her eyes, already cutting ties. Nicole collapsed on the floor, surrounded by shards of her own lies. She screamed at Victor, cursed him, swore she would ruin him, but her voice cracked under the weight of her humiliation. Victor simply collected his papers, thanked the guests again, and walked out. Calm, composed, victorious. I followed him outside, my chest tight. I asked him why he dragged me into it, why he made me part of this spectacle. He looked at me with that same detached calm and said I had been necessary, that my role gave his case credibility, that I had been a pawn, yes, but a useful one. And then he thanked me, coldly, politely, as if I had done him a favor. Before I could respond, he stepped into a waiting car and disappeared into the night. I stood there, trembling, realizing the extent of his control. He hadn't just exposed Nicole. He had manipulated everyone around him, including me, into playing parts in his perfect plan. Nicole tried to contact me in the days after, but I ignored every call. Word spread quickly. Her reputation collapsed. She lost her job, her apartment, her social circle. The woman who once seemed untouchable was left isolated, despised, a ghost of herself. Victor vanished from my life as smoothly as he had entered it. No more messages, no more photos, no more threats. His work was complete. I was left with the wreckage, memories of a woman I never truly knew, scars from being a pawn in a game I didn't understand, and the unsettling realization that men like Victor exist. Patient, calculated, merciless. I sometimes wonder if I'll ever stop looking over my shoulder, waiting for another envelope, another message, another reminder that he's still watching. But deep down, I know the truth. Victor didn't need to keep watching me anymore, because he had already won. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day, and trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.